Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Wil. We have a book review. I almost feel like we should be playing like some patriotic song in the background, but we are going to talk about Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. So it's a book that came out a while ago, but still rings true today. Can't wait to dig into this one. But before we do, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. We're on all of them, including YouTube. I want to give a shout out to nickmenard.com and his Amazon best-selling book, his second best-selling book on Amazon, The 1% Push Legacy. Thank you, Nick Menard.
You're very welcome, Will and our winners.
What's up? What's up? So, Extreme Ownership. I remember when I first came across, so I actually came across a video of Jocko before I actually read the book. And I saw this guy and I'm like, if there was ever anybody who looked like he was going to be in the military, it's this dude, right? And anyway, I mean, he's just got that look. And so I was intrigued, and one of my teammates was raving about the book. So I read it, have to say, majorly impressed. And I follow him on social media now. He gets up 4 a.m. between 4 and 4:15 every day. He takes a photo of his wristwatch with the time on it to work out. And he's older than me, but I guarantee you he's in far better shape. He does not play, this dude.
Well, he's not only an ex-military, he's a former U.S. Navy SEAL officer, and I think he served even in Iraq, in Ramadi, like in the big battle. I think it was known for the worst combat zone of the Iraq War. The dude is, he saw things.
Yeah, he's one of these guys that he'll eat steel and he'll shoot out bullets, if you get my drift. So, I mean, he's nobody to mess around. But for those of you who aren't familiar, and we'll go deeper into the book in a minute, but just to give you an overview, the book, his first book, became a bestseller, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And the core premise is there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. So he squarely puts the responsibility on the leaders, argues that leaders must own everything in their world: outcomes, failures, miscommunication, execution gaps, and team performance. Not shared ownership, and not delegated blame. Total responsibility. If something goes wrong, the leader owns it, period. Thoughts on that high level before we jump into our quotes and quips?
No, that's exactly that. And I do believe that. I know we were together in a meeting a few weeks ago, and they took a quote of a very known Italian coach who said, like, great leader makes your team like 30 to 50% better, and a bad one makes team 20% worse. Well, that's exactly what he said. So he literally said that great leaders take full responsibility for everything in their world, and nothing gets blamed on others. And that's extreme ownership. And that's literally what they talk about in the book. Something good to know about the author, since we talked about them, because it's Jocko Willink and Lev Bebin. So when they retired, they founded a leadership consulting firm. Mm-hmm. So that's literally like they learned tons in combat mode, and then they brought that to the civilian, and they built a leadership consulting firm, and they became very successfully with, of course, the book coming out, and et cetera, et cetera. So they're very credible. And I think that credibility comes from real combat leadership, in their case, life and death situation that tested leadership principle to the extreme.
Yeah, I love it. And great point, by the way, because sometimes I think people may think, well, that may work in the military. It's not going to work at my company I'm building or my company that I'm a part of. That's not the case. Those principles ring true. It reminds me back when we, did the review on Admiral McCrarien's commencement speech at the University of Texas. So, these principles cut across. They're not just good for military, not just good for commercial. They resonate across the board. So, great point. Glad you brought that up. All right. You ready for our favorite segment?
Quotes and
quips. There we go. Here we go. So You know how we kind of pivoted for our winners who follow us. Lately when we do book reviews, we lead with a quote from the book. So Nick covered very well Jocko's history and kind of, Navy SEAL, all that stuff. This is going to be the shortest quote I think I've ever read on our podcast. It is 3 words, but it's from the author, Jocko Willink. And the quote is, discipline equals freedom. Thoughts on that?
Well, people who follow us for a while, they know that when they ask me why you're doing what you do, why you are building what you're building, continue to work so much, it's not for money, it's for freedom. And I do believe discipline is key. I've always said discipline and consistency are key in everything you do. And so this quote represents, it's short and sweet, right? That's what we like here, like straight to the point, get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so I really love the fact that if you have a plan, commit to the plan, do not waver from the plan, just adapt positively, but don't waver for the initial plan because you made the plan for a reason. Be consistent in each and every step, and eventually success will come. And what is success for you? It can be anything. For me, it's freedom. And that's why this quote, I didn't know before you even shared the quote because we don't discuss that before, but I love it because it's exactly it's literally on my wall, my living room, that what I'm doing, everything I do in life is for freedom. And so I don't have a family, so I don't have children. For people who said, oh, you should family first. Well, I don't have one. So for me, it's freedom, the ability to do whatever I want to do, to impact the world, to impact people close to me, to have the best possible life that is good for me. That's why I'm doing everything I'm doing every day.
Yeah, well said. There's a unsexy aspect to discipline, right? Getting up in the morning and working out when you don't feel like it requires discipline. Not exactly fun unless you're somebody who really, gets into it, which obviously some people do. But I think for most people, it probably feels more like a grind. But there's discipline in that, and it gives you freedom in terms of, you can be in better health, right? And things like that. And then obviously all the things that you talked about. But I think, when it comes to things like being disciplined, being stoic to a certain degree, having some operational rigor, like your own personal operating system, how you're going to follow, that doesn't get the limelight. That's not what the paparazzi is taking pictures of. That's not what people are necessarily interviewing and being like, hey, can you tell me about this? Because it's a bit of the grind aspect of it, but that's what separates, the critical few people who get further ahead versus sometimes the masses who wallow behind, and comes down to discipline. And I know for me personally, it's probably, if it's not the number one factor that leads to success, it's definitely like top 2. And where I've faltered, it's because of a lack of discipline. I have gotten off track. I've fallen off the path. It's taken me a while to get back on, if I get back on. So the merit to it and how it equates to freedom, however you define freedom from time, freedom with lifestyle, freedom from health issues, freedom from mental health issues. A lot of good things come from discipline.
Love it.
All right, my friend. Well, here's another one for Quip. This one, some of our Quips lately have been unsourced. I am proud to say that this one is sourced. So not made up. Not that the other ones were, they were just anonymous. But this one's from David Goggins, who is a motivational and leadership speaker. So somebody in our realm, so to speak. And what David's quip is, accountability feels heavy only when you're carrying excuses. So I just had this vision of somebody with like suitcases, and they got excuses in both suitcases.
So no, the first thing that come to mind, what if you take all the excuse away? How easier it's gonna be to climb this mountain?
Yeah.
And we talked a lot on our podcast about the ladder of accountability, and that's literally what it is. Are you a victor or a victim? Don't be a victim. Victim drag excuses, and it's weighed a lot. It's like muscles, eat weight more than fat. And it's the same with excuses. Um, and I like the analogy because it always makes laugh. Like that's a quip. So that's the whole purpose of it. It's like to have a levity to it. But it's true. Like take the excuses, look at it, understand why you said that, try to turn it into something positive or something that you can actually work on, and then put it away. Then take the next one, do the same, and then you will see the climb will be so much easier, and the weight of everything will be so much lighter. And so it's self-explanatory. I don't need to add too much, but I love this quote.
Yeah, it's really good, and it ties to this book and what Jocko talks about as well. So we can dive into a little bit more as we go. So for our winners who've been following us, what we try to do is take 10 key themes from the books that we review. So these are things that we kind of thought about as, these are 10 really key themes that are talked about, and try to provide a practical lens to it as well as a leadership lens to it. Because we try to stay true to our 30 minutes or less commitment to our listeners, we usually batch these. So I'm going to read the first three, and then give like a little summary for each three, and then come back to Nick and have him pick one so that we can dive in deeper for you, our audience. So the first three are extreme ownership, no bad teams, only bad leaders, and belief. And so on extreme ownership, leaders are responsible for everything their team does or fails to do. No bad teams, only bad leaders. Team performance reflects leadership effectiveness. Or believe. Leaders must generally believe in the mission and to inspire belief in others. So which one of those three do you want to go in deeper?
Wow, I love all three, probably the best of all 10. But let's start with the first one. Extreme ownership.
Okay.
Because it's pretty much the title of the book. So I think it's important that we touch base. So actually, the whole purpose of this is to say that the leaders take 100% responsibility for everything that impacts their mission in this case, because it's an army guy who's talking. So the key idea are that there are no bad teams, like you mentioned in the beginning, only bad leaders. And then from the quip, no excuses. You see how we do it? Everything comes together very, very smoothly.
Linky.
Exactly. No blaming others, no shifting responsibility to, it's not me. So something also that I want to add based on here the conversation is, when you hear leaders saying like, well, that's not my responsibility, well, they probably are managers, because managers, they look at what their responsibilities are, and if it's not in there, they don't need to do it. A leader will always try to help and make sure that everything keeps moving forward, even if it's maybe not 100% in their description title. So no shifting responsibility. I really like that, because you can always have a line, but it's never going to be a straight line when you want to achieve something in life. It's like we talk about, like entrepreneurship. Rarely, never, you will have a straight line from when you start to success. You will have to deviate sometimes. All right. So you can do that in order to achieve success. It doesn't mean that you need to be responsible for everything, but sometimes you may have to do things that are not 100% what in your job description is. And if something goes wrong, let the leader own it, and then put everything down back to their team so they can focus on what they need to focus to be successful. Okay? But you are the leader, so you own it. You have to take into consideration all the diagnosis of everything that needs to happen. And you will again give to your team when you analyze everything and you know exactly what the next step should be, instead of let them figure it out. That's leadership. You need to solve it in partnership with your peer, with your partner, depending what kind of business you have, because it's a podcast about entrepreneurship and businesses. And ensure it doesn't happen again, because if you do it over and over again, the same mistakes, that becomes insanity. All right. So this differs from normal accountability because it's active responsibility, not reactive excuse making. So this is something that for me summarize very well what extreme ownership means. But I will give you the word as well, Will, in case you want something to add.
Yeah, I think awesome job. I think you deconstructed it really well. I would just say, the practical lens for our winners to think through are missed targets, poor execution, disengaged teams. I mean, we've talked about all these things so many times throughout our podcast journey. But before blaming people, processes, or market conditions, the leader needs to ask, where did I fail to clarify, resource, or reinforce? Right. And I think the practical leadership takeaway is ownership is not blame, it's power. Because if you don't own the problem, you can't fix it. And that's something that Jocko talks throughout. It's like when you own it, you can fix it. If you have excuses, you can't fix something where if you're making excuses for it. So it just really puts things very cleanly and front and center on leader, you own it. How do you get better so that you can get better outcomes? Cool.
No,
All
thank you.
right. So
Thank you for sharing. For sharing. I totally agree with you as well.
yeah, no, of course. So the next few are check the ego. Ego clouds judgment. It shuts down learning. Cover and move. Teams must work together toward the mission, not compete internally. Simple. Plans must be simple and clearly communicated. And then number 7, prioritize and execute. Leaders must focus on the most important task first. So we have check the ego, cover and move, keep it simple, or prioritize and execute. Which way do you want to go?
Ooh, it's also hard. The check the ego, I think we did it. We did a few times already. I mean, so the rest pretty much. But let me go to cover and move, and then I think I will be able to cover. The next two, the simple plan. So that's something I can easily do and prioritize and execute. We'll see what we can do. But I think I can.
Yeah,
I can go
pick
through.
one, pick your primary one, and then we got 3 left after this. So
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, cover and move then. All right,
Okay.
because cover and move means teamwork. So it means mutual support, and we cannot achieve anything by ourselves. All right, so teamwork is key, and we keep talking about it during on our podcast about the importance of team or teamwork. That alone you cannot achieve anything. That you need to reach out to mentors. You need to have peers around you to can help you. Mindset wise, but also with different situations that arise. That by yourself you have so much knowledge, and if you need to learn everything each step, you will never go anywhere. So in the book, they're talking about the importance of teamwork in combat. All right. So covering fire so teammates can advance, for example, that's something that came up in the book. But in business or life is the same. Departments cover and move for each other. Teams are interdependent, not siloed. And that's something that we talk about in this podcast a lot, but it's important to understand that you cannot be the smart person in the room. You need to be around people that can elevate you. And the best way to do this is once you build your company and you start raising and growing, you will have to hire people that will be better than you in those domains, because you want to rely on people that have the knowledge to do so instead of trying to learn everything. And now everybody thinks that they can learn anything fast with ChatGPT, but it's really not the case. So that's what cover and move means. You need to cover each other and advance together. It's a lot easier than doing by yourself.
Yeah, I think well said. And I like the part where you're talking about the rival or the silos, because I think in larger organizations, for sure, sometimes you get so much overlap and redundancy because people are working on things in parallel, and it's a waste of effort. And then everyone wants to sell their version of the idea instead of staying focused on the end result and just how do we create something that's efficient and effective to get to that end result versus who gets the credit of drafting it. So I love that and how you were talking about that. And I think the practical leadership takeaway is your job is not to optimize departments, it's to win the mission. So, keep the end goal in mind, and how do you reverse engineer collectively as a team to make that happen versus worrying about which department's going to get the credit for the success. So, all right. So let's get to the last three, and then Nick will pick one and we'll go deeper. So the last three are decentralized command, empower leaders at every level with authority and clarity. Number 9, discipline equals freedom. Discipline is process creates freedom and execution. And then number 10, leading up and down the chain. So leadership responsibility flows in all directions. So decentralized command, discipline equals freedom, kind of touches on our quote that we talked about. And then leading up and down the chain, which way you want to go?
Hmm. Hmm. I will take the decentralized command. Because again, it touched on what I said earlier about the importance of teamwork. One leader cannot control everything, and that's something that's very important to understand. Um, when I talk to different people who are leader or call themselves leader, they tend to be willing to own everything because they have to. Well, I mentioned earlier that's the responsibility of the leader, but you have other leader next to you. Utilize them, because you cannot have the answer for everything. Great leader empower junior leaders. And I love that because I do believe the definition of leadership, if you follow us, you heard me saying that a lot. It's you're not a leader until you can create a leader. And so mentor someone that can become eventually a leader. And that's the beauty of, for me, great leadership, and to be able to empower, in this case, what I call junior leaders. Give clear intent. Be very clear in your messaging. Because if you're not clear in your messaging, people will do what I think you need, or what they think it's needed to happen, but it's probably not 100% what it is if the communication is not clear enough. So have a clear intent and explain the why. That's going to be key. Trust team to execute. If you have a team, you need to give trust to them. And then it's your goal, it's your responsibility to coach them to get better when you see things happening. If you're doing a business that, you cannot afford to have any kind of mistake made, which in the case of the book, that's a battlefield. So you kind of you cannot make mistake, but majority of businesses, you can actually tweak things to make things better. All right. And that's the trusting the team to execute for me. And then maintain proper alignment. If you are going all over the place and you only trust one or two people around you, you want those people to do everything, then you miss on all the other department, all the other region that may have a better understanding of the situation at hand. So you need to make sure to maintain some kind of alignment so everybody know what needs to be done in each department. So everyone must think and act within the main leader's intent. And that's something that came up multi times in the book. You are nothing by yourself. It's a teamwork. And I think that when we did the episode with the UT speech, that was exactly what he keeps saying as well. Like you rely on the person next to you in order to win, and in this case, battlefield. So that's what I have for the decentralized comment.
Love it. Yeah. And, well said as always. And I think just to build upon some of the points you made, one of the things that came to mind with me and you've been very consistent about this, like you're not a leader unless you're cultivating other leaders. And it's tough to cultivate true leaders. You can cultivate managers, but it's tough to cultivate leaders if you're micromanaging, because at its root essence are two things, in my opinion, with micromanagement. For the leader who is micromanaging, or I could say a manager who is micromanaging, it's that they have a trust issue, right? Because you're not trusting the people, and the trust could be maybe they are ill-equipped to do it, or maybe it's because you haven't equipped them with the right kind of clarity and empowerment and freedom to act on what is the objective. And so the issue could be them, or it could be you. Probably it's a bit of both, right? Because if you're micromanaging, they're probably not developing as fast. And then on the other aspect of that coin is what signal do you think that's giving your people if you're going to that extreme level of micromanagement? Now, if your business is floundering or it's not doing as well, or there's a crisis situation of some point, of course, micromanagement may be what's needed to navigate through those choppy waters. In a small window, it could be a highly effective thing to do. But to have that be the standard, where the standard is micromanagement, you're not conveying trust. People aren't developing. And then, God forbid, those are people who get promoted. They're going to do the same thing to their people. And then, really how much are you really cultivating leadership and for people to actually do some things, learn, grow, so that it doesn't all fall on your shoulders? Because to your point that you made towards the end, it takes a team, it takes a team. There is not a single individual walking this planet, even somebody like Elon Musk, who is very visionary. He has people around them that are helping to bring that vision to reality. It's not like he's in there doing everything on his own. That's not how life works. So I love your point about that. And I think the micromanagement, it slows execution. It demoralizes teams if done for a long period of time. And so the leadership takeaway is train leaders so well they can act without permission.
Mm.
There was I referenced this book. We're going to have to do a book summary on this one, even though I think it's like 22 years old now, but it's called the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and I followed him. One of the things that he learned, so he was building a online ordering system for supplements back when that was a new thing. So this is like 2002, 2003. And what he found is he was getting bogged down anytime there was a customer, because he outsourced all the work to, I think it was Philippines. But he outsourced a lot of the customer service, and he was getting bogged down with, somebody wants to get a return, and they would ask him to validate the return. And these pills were, I don't know, $40, $50. So he's like, I'm just getting bogged down with all these things I have to approve. So what he did is, and this is an outside vendor, so it wasn't even his employees, but it was who he was contracting with. He's like, look, here's the deal. If the issue takes less than $100 to fix, I empower you to make the decision. Whether you approve or not approve, you decide. If it's more than $100, then come to
You
me.
come to me. Mhm.
And he chose that $100 because he was following Pareto principle. 80% of the claims were like under that amount, and he could free up all this time of not having to respond. And instead, all he did is once a month review what they approved, try to figure out what the themes were about it, and then optimize it from there. But it freed up so much time, and that was a way in which he did it. It wasn't about micromanaging them; it was empowering them. And then it gave him a lot of time, and in some cases, they were more stringent than he was on whether to grant a return or not. So it
I'm
actually
sure.
benefited his business as well.
I love it. No, I love it. I think to summarize, I mean, the book most reusable nuggets are: leader don't blame, they fix. Leadership is a mindset, not a title, and everyone can lead at some level, not all level. So understand the power I have of creating more leaders around you, because everybody will have their own line and it's irreplaceable. So those three are the main nuggets, I think, from the book.
Yeah, I agree. Those are great ones. And I think, ultimately what extreme ownership teaches is for leaders who practice it, you eliminate excuses, like get rid of the excuses. You build trust. You increase execution speed, and you create resilient, accountable cultures. And imagine how much you can accomplish you alluded to this earlier on about the ladder of accountability. You got a lot of people operating on the victor rungs of the ladder of accountability versus victim. Man, imagine the progress that is made, and imagine the fun, the environment you have, because you're moving things forward. You're not wallowing in what's not working. You're finding solutions and making things happen.
100%.
Yeah.
Love it.
There we go, winners. So Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Highly recommend it, whether you read it the old-fashioned way with a physical book in your hands or on Audible, or I don't know, my guess is he's probably done a TED Talk. I know he's got a podcast and stuff, so you have to check that out. But Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL, somebody who walks the talk when it comes to leadership for sure. So that'll do it for this Monday Mindset, winners. Hope you have a great week. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow 2 for the Win on your favorite platform. And again, if you haven't read it already, make sure you read The 1% Push Legacy by Nick Menard and check out nickmenard.com. That'll do it for this week, winners. We'll see you next week.
Bye, winners.
Bye.